On the other side of a storm is the strength that comes from navigating through it. Raise your sail and begin. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean that you're failing. I think sometimes people equate struggling with failure. It's not. It isn't even close. In fact, if you're struggling, it tells me that you're still in the game. We don't see these incredible opportunities first because every opportunity that you and I have is surrounded by a problem. I've never gone to an opportunity that I didn't have to go to the door of problems first. So the next time you have an obstacle, a difficulty, an adversity in your life, don't allow the crisis to numb you. Be alive, learn, feel, fail, learn. That's what it's all about if you want to make this difficult time a good time. I just want you to know that there's a hero within you. I know there is. And during this tough time, let the hero out. Let people see the best of you, your highest aspirations. You be the one who's the lifter and the encourager.
Hey, welcome to the Leadership When It Matters the Most Leader Series. My name is Mark Cole. I'm the President and CEO of the John Maxwell Enterprise. Our goal has been during these crises to add value to you through these series and through John Maxwell's weekly relevant message. We hope we have been able to do that. For the next 2 weeks, we have a special treat for you and something that John has been working on to prepare for you and to share with you that will add value to you and the people that you multiply value to under your leadership. This week, John is going to be talking about halftime adjustments. Now, we in no way believe or forecast that we're halfway through the coronavirus crisis. But what we do know, now is the time to begin to adjust and to reflect on the previous times of crisis and to begin to change the game plan and increase our impact and effectiveness as leaders during these difficult times. We hope you will enjoy the message that John is going to be bringing to you in the next few minutes. Next week, John Maxwell will be sharing a tribute to his father, Melvin Maxwell. Recently, John and his family were able to share the last few moments of Melvin Maxwell's life and the impact that he's had on John Maxwell, our team, and ultimately you. Now, you may not know Melvin, but as John next week begins to share a tribute to this leader that has effectively impacted not only John, but the world that John has been leading and influencing over the last 73 years. We hope you will enjoy it. Now today, again, halftime adjustments, how to adjust and effectively lead during these difficult times. We hope you will enjoy. We want to serve you and to add value to you. And now to do just that, here is John C. Maxwell.
I want to talk to you today about halftime adjustments. In the world of sports, coaches have a pregame plan. And they basically look at the game that they're going to go into and they kind of try to figure out what they want to accomplish against the opponent. And so they sit, maybe the first dozen, 12, 15 plays. They've got a pregame plan, and pretty much they're going in and saying, this is how we want to dictate the game. And then the game goes and begins, and they play it out. And most of the time, although a pregame plan is very important, there are surprises. And so the difference between a good coach and a great coach is not the pregame plan. All good coaches do that. It's the halftime adjustments that separate the good from the great coaches. Because after they played a half, they pretty well now know what their opponent is going to do, and they now are dealing with more reality. And so they go back in and say, we kind of thought this, but that wasn't what happened, and so here's what we need to do. And the great coaches just make terrific halftime adjustments. So when COVID-19 came to us, It was a big surprise. Nobody had even had a pre-game plan for this. There was just no plan. We just got smacked upside the head, huge surprises, all of us totally unaware, blindsided. Oh my gosh, what's happening here? And but now we've been doing this for a few months, and I kind of think that we see things a little bit better, a little bit clearer, more, a little different for sure. And we're not quite as surprised. And so I want to talk to you about 4 halftime adjustments that I think we need to make as leaders, okay? And I'm going to make an observation, 4 observations, and I'll make 4 adjustments off of those observations. And I'm very excited about the lesson. So, hey, let's get started and see what happens. Observation number 1, this crisis is not easily or quickly over. I think we're all aware of it right now, that this is not something that just came, went, done. All right, let's get back to our life. It's not, it didn't come easily to us, and it's not easy, and it's not going to quickly be over. How many times have we been asked as leaders? Thousands of times about the future and how long will this last? We don't really know, still don't know. But what we do know is it's not easily or quickly over. There's no quick fixes, and it's not going to be done in 2 weeks. Margaret Thatcher said, "You may have to fight a battle more than once to win it." That's a huge statement for what we are going through right now. In other words, Margaret Thatcher was kind of preparing us, a great leader, of course, of Britain. She was saying that there are some wars that you're in that you just got to fight the battle over and over again. It's kind of like we fought that battle. Okay, I think we're done. Oh, no, we're not done. And we have to enter again and again. And that's my observation, the first observation about what we're going through right now. So what is our adjustment to this observation that the crisis is not easily or quickly over? The adjustment is quit hoping for easy and for quick. Quit hoping for that and start thinking about permanent or continual crisis. Now, I'm not going to try to be a huge negative, wet blanket in your life, but I think I'm giving you really good advice here as a leader. I think we need to start thinking a couple things. I think we need to think that this crisis could last a real long time. But I think even more we need to be thinking of the fact that if this one kind of subsides, it's highly possible and probable, I believe, for another crisis to come. And it's because we live in a dysfunctional community, a society that is incredibly emotionally driven, pretty much in their dysfunction, has a tendency to look about what's happening to me instead of the big picture. I don't need to go into that right now, but the point being, as a leader, I think we need to be thinking that there will be other crises, and some of them will last a long time. And the reason I think this is important as an adjustment is because until we get there in our mind, I think that we're going to have what I call some thinking hang-ups. Thinking hang-ups like the ostrich hang-up, which is, we know what the ostrich does, stick their head in the sand and ignore what's happening. Or the status quo hang-up, which basically resists change even when we see it's necessary. We just say, I know I probably could, should, but I don't want to. By the way, I was just listening to a podcast the other day on my walk, and it was by the Spartan founder, the one who does all the obstacle races in, 45 countries now. Very interesting podcast. And he said something that was incredible. He said, I'm going to give you the number one motivator of people. Now, when somebody talks about motivation, I'm kind of tuned in because that's what I try to do. I try to know the motives of people and the motivations of people so I can lead them. Remember, managers lead everybody the same. Leaders lead everybody differently. So when he said, I'm going to give you the number one motivation, I just thought, in fact, in my book, The Leader's Greatest Return, I have a whole chapter on the 7 motivations of people, trying to help the reader, understand these are the 7 ways people are motivated, so understand them so that you can find them in the people and motivate them accordingly. So what he said, I'm going to give you the number one motivation. Okay, I'm all listening, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder which of the 7 I have in my chapter he's going to choose, and much to my surprise, he didn't have any of mine in my chapter. He said the number one motivator, by the way, if you would have asked me to list 100 This would not have been on my list, but as soon as he said it, I thought, here I am. I got blindsided. This makes sense to me. He said the number one motivator for people is avoiding discomfort. He said people will almost do anything to stay in their comfort zone. And the moment that they feel that they're going to go out of their comfort zone, they almost get motivated to get right back or stay right in their comfort zone. As soon as he said that, I thought, wow, I would never thought of it. Now, I would have never thought of it because when I think of motivating people, I think of moving them forward, not moving them into their comfort zone. I've never tried to motivate anybody to do that. But when he said that, I thought to myself, there are a lot of people going through this crisis, and even though they realize it's changing them and it's changing people, they're going to just have this status quo hang up, and they're going to pretty much fight. Even though they know that they should change, they're going to just say, but I don't want to change. So we can be like the ostrich and say, it's not happening, or the status quo, well, I don't want it to happen, I'm not going to change. Or then there's the endowment hang up. And this one I really think I would like to teach. I can't in this lesson, but I would like to teach on this longer. The endowment hang up is where we overvalue what we possess. And we basically say it's ours, it's mine, and it has a right to be mine. And I heard a quote again on one of my walks because I listen to podcasts. I'm a podcast junkie. But this one was just powerful. It says, the more you own, the more things own you. And I thought of that with the endowment kind of a hang up in the fact that there are just a whole bunch of things I cling to and say, this is mine and I don't want to give it up and this is important to me. And so we won't take what I would call a beneficial risk and give up something that we're comfortable with to have something that would make us better or make people better. The other hang up is the 40% hang up. This is new to me. Jesse Itzler introduced this to me in a book. And here's what Jesse says. When your mind tells you that you are totally exhausted and totally tapped, you're really only about 40% done. You have 60% left in your tank. And when he said that, I thought, wow, is it possible that I, at 40%, kind of feel I've hit capacity and I just kind of hit the wall and just stop and say, okay, well, I think I'm done with that, and that I have literally 60% left in me. This was a big eureka moment to me, because if that is true, look how much we are, quote, leaving on the table. Look how much we're not really accomplishing. In fact, I put in my notes for you, the rewards of letting go of these hang-ups, the 4 that I gave you, pay dividends. And they help you think more clearly when you know that things will not return to normal. And so the reason I'm giving this to you is because, remember, again, the first observation is the fact that the crisis is not quickly or easily over. And so the adjustment we need to make is to stop thinking quick and easy and start thinking perhaps permanent, but for sure continue. And if that's the case, then we got to get rid of these thinking hang-ups that I talked about. Bob Marley said something that I love, and I'm giving this to you. He said, you never know how strong you are until strong is your only choice. And I thought, isn't that true? I think sometimes in that 40% rule that I just gave you a moment ago, we really do have to get in the corner and have our backs up to the wall before we begin to understand the untapped strength that we have and come to the place where the only choice I have is to be strong. And I think that's what COVID-19 has done. I think that's what some of the major racial issues that we have in our country and around the world, really. I think this is all calling for us to realize that we're going to have to up our game. We're going to have to up our game because the crises are not going to stop. They're going to be more difficult than we think. They're going to last longer than we think. And it's not going to do any good for us to wish. We need a backbone, not a wishbone. And so that's the first observation that I just think is very important. Let's go to observation number 2. This observation says that crisis leadership requires agility, pivoting, and adjusting. We just have to realize, with all the changes that are happening so quick and some by surprise, that we're going to have to really be good at being agile, adjusting, pivoting, making the quick turn. I wrote the book Leadership a couple years ago, And our John Maxwell Team people and publishers are saying the book's selling more than it's ever sold before. I really wrote it 2 years ago, but what are people doing? Their leaders shifting all the time. They're realizing that what they could depend upon yesterday as a leader, they can't even depend upon today. And it's not that they're fickle, it's the fact that they have to meet the changes where they are, right at the change intersection. Michael Hyatt, a longtime buddy and friend of mine, said to me one time, he said, this is so important because we're going to talk about pivoting, adjusting, being agile. Michael Hyatt said, John, he said, you don't drift to a desired location. He said, anytime you drift, literally you are where you don't want to be. You know, it goes back to everything worthwhile is uphill. There's nothing about drifting that brings success to us. And so when I realized that this change that we're in is requiring us to be intentionally agile, intentionally pivoting, intentionally adjusting, the adjustment for this observation is that we need to lean into change and not away from it. We need to look at change and all the things that are happening to us very quickly. And we need to really lean into it. We need to embrace it. We need to say, okay, this is where I live. This may not be where I want to live, but this is where I live. And for leaders, this is where we really have to live because a lot of our people are not wanting to lean into change. They're wanting to fall back. Successful leaders realize that if everything around them changes, they need to change, and they need to change fast. It's not a slow change. They need to be able to pivot, be agile, adjust very, very quickly. And let me give you an example of that, and this is one example. I'm teaching you right now in a studio, and my friend Andrew has just been super to me. He and I have become best friends, trust me, because I'm in the studio doing virtual stuff all the time. We have had hundreds of requests for me to do stuff in the studio. And here's one of the discoveries I made. Remember, I'm talking about being agile and adjusting to the change and being able to pivot. One of the things I've discovered, you would have thought when I couldn't travel and speak physically to people that my load would have gotten less, and all of a sudden it increased because I'm virtual, the people say, oh my, they kind of demand more studio presence from me, and here's why. You see, if I told somebody they wanted me to speak for them, and I said, well, I'm already in another state, I'm doing another gig, another event, they'd say, oh, well, of course, well, when can you speak for us? But now that I'm in a studio, it's kind of like he isn't going anywhere, and could he talk to us about this subject, and could we have it in 2 days? Because now I've lost my, quote, excuse. It was a right one, but I've lost my excuse of travel and time, and I just can't get to it. I can't get to you. I can't get there. All of a sudden, I'm not limited to travel. And for example, today, literally late last afternoon, between one leader and then my assistant Linda, they literally asked me to come into the studio and do three new talks that I hadn't even, if you had talked to me yesterday at noon, I said, I am coming to the studio because I've got some things I've got to present and talk about. But I had an add-on of 3 from about 5 o'clock on last night. Now what's happening? This is a change, and I've got to learn to pivot. I've got to learn to adjust very quickly. And so what I put in my notes for you is, here's how I want you to think. Think options, not direction. So the person that says, well, I just want to get it in the calendar, I want it to be plain, I want it to be clear, and I want it to be set. Not too much of that's going to happen right now. Think options, not direction. Think fluid, not formed. Here, I love this one. Think detours, not familiarity. Because the crisis we're going through right now just puts us on a different path than we ever planned on being. And we're taking detours that we don't. And when I take a detour, you're like I am, I want to get off of it as quick as I can and kind of get back on the road so I can, I want to get to my destination. And all of a sudden I'm realizing that's not, no, I'm having detours every day. Hey, last night after 5, I had 3 speaking detours. And what I'm saying to you is, instead of resenting the detour, get on the detour tour. Get on it, because you're seeing things you've never seen. You're meeting people you've never met. You're observing stuff that you've never observed. And on this detour tour is all kind of opportunity. But if my mindset is I got to get back to where I want to go instead of where I am, I'll rush through all the opportunity. I'll miss all of it. And so I'll try to get back to the familiar, the comfortable, the thing that I know better. That's not healthy. So in understanding, pivoting, adjusting, agility, what I want you to do is I want you just to just stay on the detour tour and not rush off of it, because there are all kind of opportunities there. Trust me. The last different kind of thinking, I've got to kind of maybe explain it. It's really good. I just have to explain it. What I said initially is think first, not fastest. And maybe instead of first, you could put the word initiative. Think initiative. And when I said fastest, not talent, and I'm going back to my Gail Devers conversation, that great track athlete that I told her I could win a 100-yard dash if her and I were in a race. And in disbelief, she said, "No, you can't." And I said, "Yes, I can." And then I gave her the conditions. "Gail, if you give me an 80-yard head start, I could win the race." "Of course you can, John. You have an 80-yard head start on me. You can win the race." And that's the whole point of first, getting started first will always be fastest. She had the talent. She was much faster. But if I go first, if I take the initiative, and in a crisis like this with a lot of change happening, please put great value on first. Because I can promise you, if you're there first, you win the day. Not fastest, okay? So those are things to kind of adjust your thinking during this time of trying to be agile. Living well depends upon what I call two arts of change. I wish in fact, when I worked on this part of the lesson, I thought I'd like to do a whole lesson on this. But if you live well, you have developed the art of two things: adaptation and innovation. And both of them are about change. People that are successful adapt very well to the changes, and they're saying, "Wow, it's not the same." But instead of bemoaning the fact that it's not the same, they say, "Okay, it's moving. I got to adapt. I've got to adjust." So, it's kind of like readjusting from what you knew to what is new. Did you get that? Readjusting from what you knew to what is new. And then the second one is innovation, which is creating new things. And so when change occurs, we're either innovating and creating new change, or we're adjusting to things around us. And during this crisis, the ability to pivot, the ability to be agile, the ability to adjust, this is all part of staying on the edge of being able to be present and be relevant and take advantage of all the winds of change around you. Okay. Observation number 3. Our biggest crisis is our loss of values. I'm not trying to in any way underestimate the crisis that we have. We all know that there's racial inequality. We all know that it's wrong. We all know that it's a cancer in our culture. We all know this. I'm not trying to minimize anything that is before us, the pandemic. I'm not ignoring this, but listen to me very carefully. I'm going to repeat it. Our biggest crisis is our loss of values. I know that to be true because in 1992, Larry Kirschbaum, who was the CEO of Time Warner, I was writing for Time Warner at the time, Coleman in New York City. We had a long dinner, and it was during the Enron crisis, and it was the beginning of this corporate culture of deceitfulness and fraud and quick and easy dollars to be made, and literally leaving employees holding a bad outcome, an empty bag. And Enron had just hit and was major news. And so Larry said, John, I want you to write a book for me on business ethics. And I said, well, I can't do that. He said, why? I said, because there's no such thing as business ethics. He said, well, what do you mean? Look at Enron. And he began to name other companies in America that were just doing wrong, that didn't have ethics. He said, they don't have business ethics. I said, no, you don't understand, Larry. There's no such thing as business ethics. I said, there's just ethics. That's all. There's just ethics. And if you have them, it works in business. Oh, happy day. And it works in your community. It works in your family. And if you don't have them, it doesn't work anywhere. And of course, he was, he's a promoter. He's a publisher. He said, oh, I love the title of the book. There's no such thing as business ethics. And literally, the book came out with that title, and we won several awards from ethic communities and societies about the book. That's not the point right now. It's called Ethics 101 now. But anyway, here's the point. The point being, I knew that the only way that I could help us get right our ship was to go to values. And I went to an incredible value, the Golden Rule, which is absolutely embraced and taught in every religion and every culture. We did research on it. Every religion, every culture has the Golden Rule. It's a terrific value. Treat others as you want to be treated. And I literally built the entire ethics book on the Golden Rule. That was life-changing to me because it was a eureka moment, and I learned something that I'm very passionate about to now. Now, let me give you the observation. The observation is very simple. The biggest crisis in our lives is the loss of our values. We've lost our way, folks. We've lost our way. In fact, that is such a fact that no matter what country I'm in, when they ask us to come in and begin to teach values in the country, I don't have to convince anybody that we have a values deficit, that we've lost our way. So here's the adjustment. The adjustment for this is that we need to embrace unchanging values in an unpredictable world. And by the way, that's not my thought. That thought was several centuries ago by Plato. By the way, there's a book that you really want to get. I've read several books during the COVID-19 and what we're going through right now, but it's called Plato's Lemonade Stand. It's by Tom Morris. Plato's Lemonade Stand is a phenomenal book, and I'm going to read. I'm going to read from the book, okay? And I'm just let me read for a moment because I want to make sure you understand. This isn't my thought. This is the thinking of great men and women of the past. Here's how Tom Morris writes it in the book, Plato's Lemonade Stand. A champion wrestler as well as a great thinker, Plato took his stand on unchanging values as the ultimate leverage we have for grappling with this unpredictable world. Centuries ago, folks, centuries ago. He was convinced that we could attain true success in life only if we first understand the things that never change and use them well as our reference points from moving forward productively through life's uncertainties. He continues by saying, centuries later, Jesus of Nazareth talked about building a structure of your life on solid foundation of unyielding rock rather on shifting sands that provide no sure support. And then Tom Morris quotes Søren Kierkegaard. He said, here's what Kierkegaard said. He said, when the sailor is out on the sea and everything is changing around him as the waves are continually being born and dying, he does not stare at the depth of these, since they vary. He looks up to the stars, and why? Because they are faithful. As they stand now, they stood for the patriarchs and will stand for coming generations. By what means, then, does he conquer changing conditions? Through the eternal. By means of the eternal, one can conquer the future because the eternal is the foundation of the future. And then finally, Tom Morris tells us, I'm still reading, our highest ideals and our deepest values that connect with the eternal can shed light on the often murky and confusing situations we face at work and in our personal lives. Powerful thought. The biggest crisis we have is a loss of good values. I've just finished writing a book. In fact, I wrote it during COVID-19 called Change Your World. And in it, I make this statement that transformation is possible For anyone willing to learn and live good values, value every person, and collaborate with others to create a culture of positive change. We hear a lot about, laws and changing laws, and laws are very important. Laws are guardrails in our community and society. So I'm not anti-law, so please understand, stay with me for a moment. But let me tell you something. You can put a law in the land, and if people lack good values, they'll find a way. They'll find a loophole in that law. They always have. They always will. Discussion truly is over, my friend. You can't board up a country and make it safe by having great laws. It's the values. It isn't the outward law, it's the heart. To be honest with you, I'm a person of faith. If the law was all we needed, then Jesus didn't need to come. The Old Testament's all you got to have, so read the Old Testament and be on with your life. It has to be more than a law. It has to be deeper and higher than a law. It has to be inward values. I had a great discussion last week with my creative team. We spent a long day and a half in Atlanta talking about the transformational values that we teach internationally, and we're getting ready to bring them to America. In fact, my book, Change Your World, will be released in January of 2021. And with that, we're going to begin a transformational movement in America. We're very excited about it, and we've been doing it in other countries. We know what works. And what works is to have what we call transformation tables, small groups, where you teach, live out, learn transformational values. And so we went through the transformational values. I can't give you all of them because there's so many of them. I think there are 25 of them, and it's just powerful. But incredible transformation values such as courage, empathy, forgiveness, humility. Wow. Valuing every person. If we just valued everybody, if we just valued every person, we wouldn't take advantage of those persons. We wouldn't discriminate with those people. It's a values issue. We've got a heart issue. And I'm just so excited. I'm so excited about what can happen. In fact, I told the transformation team, although we don't really like what's happening right now in our country and the crisis we're going through, what a beautiful day for us. Because we understand that we have lost our way with values, and the only way to get back on that track is to get back to the right values, the good values, the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. How complicated is this? For our John Maxwell team, our coaching company, when we introduce them to JMT DNA, we have an opening statement for them, and it's powerful and it works, and I give it to you. We teach all of our coaches when they become a part of the John Maxwell team. By the way, love for you to be a part of the John Maxwell team. 34,000 John Maxwell team members in 170 countries around the world. Wow, it's a beautiful thing. Here's what we say. When we teach about putting on JMT DNA, we say we are people of value who value people and add value to them. It's who we are. It's what we do. Very simple. People of value who value people. And when you value yourself, have self-worth, when you value others, your first response is to add value to them. Just as it's the opposite. If I don't value you, I won't add value to you. You don't add value to people that you devalue. It doesn't work that way. So in our crisis, trust me, my name's John, I'm your friend. We have a values crisis. We do. Observation number 4. Observation number 4. Emotions create a tail wagging the dog scenario. Mary Shelley says, nothing is so painful to the human mind as a great and sudden change. I think that's probably really true. And because of change and the sudden change and the blindsided and things that we don't see coming, we begin to be incredibly emotional. So get the point again. The observation's very simple. Emotions create a tail wagging the dog scenario. I love Mary Shelley's quote. I put a quote kind of behind that I think just kind of ties into it, and it's a very simple quote. Emotional strength is revealed during a crisis. You see, When a crisis comes, we find out what people have on the inside. How emotionally strong am I when things are not going well? We can all be emotionally strong when things are going our way. We all have that. But during a crisis, things don't go our way, and we get surprised, we get blindsided. Things happen that we don't like. And all of a sudden, we find out what we are on the inside as far as emotional stability and strength. I'm telling leaders every time I'm teaching now that this is the time on your team to find out who your players are and who your pretenders are. Because trust me, if you're leading a team, you've got some pretenders. You got some people that really look good when things are going good, but they don't look good when things are going bad. You know why? They're not emotionally strong on the inside. And what leaders are finding all over the country and around the world right now, as they're looking and finding the players and the pretenders, what they're finding is that there are a lot of their staff, instead of being a leader and helping lift the load. By the way, leaders lift the load. Instead of lifting the load, because they're not emotionally strong themselves, they're part of the load. They're bogging things down. They're asking the same questions that followers are asking, and they're going through emotions that are debilitating to their leadership. So the adjustment that we need to make with this kind of an observation, the adjustment we need to make is that leaders need to develop emotional strength. And I go back to Tom Morris's Plato's Lemonade Stand, but now I'm sure you're going to get the book. Great book. Here's what Tom Morris says about stability. Imagine life as a big wagon wheel. If we emotionally live on the outer rim, then as the wheel turns, we are spun around to extreme highs and lows in rapid and dizzying succession. Why? Because we're on the outer rim. Everything is exaggerated in our life. So leaders that are out on the outer rim, they're emotionally unstable also. So what's Tom say? But if we can learn, I love this phrase, if we can learn to move closer to the midpoint of the hub, in other words, get to the middle of that wheel, we become much more centered and the wheel will spin. In fact, it spins as much as it always has, but we won't be so dramatically thrown about by its motion. And I put right in the book, on his Lemonade Stand book, I put right in the book, leaders need to live near the midpoint of the hub. And so my advice to every one of you out there, if you're on a leadership team, you need to ask yourself the very simple question, am I helping lift the load or am I adding to the load? If you're leading a staff, I'm saying to you, leaders, you got to look at every one of your team players. You got to ask yourself, are they lifting? Are they helping me? Are they making things better around here? Or are they part of the problem? It's like when I was leading as a pastor of a large church in San Diego, and I'd have staff members bring me issues and problems. And one day I thought, you know what? Any person can find a problem. Any person can find an issue. I don't mean this unkindly. You don't have to be smart to find out a problem. Hello? So I looked at him, I said, we're going to change things. When you bring a problem, it's okay, because we have problems. We have to deal with them. We're not trying to be the ostrich and hide our head under the sand. But when you bring me a problem, bring me 3 solutions. 3 ways that you think that problem can be fixed. And by the way, one of the 3 that you bring, you're part of the solution. In other words, you're saying, we have a problem and I think I could help you here. I can tell you that immediately changed the mindset of my team and my staff. Why? It's very simple. I was teaching them to be emotionally solid and stable. I did a teaching a few months back, and I close with this, on emotionally strong leaders. Because I can promise you right now, in this crisis, needed more than anything else is emotional stability and strength among leaders. And sadly, I was explaining to someone the other day when I was teaching, during this entire period of darkness that we've been in, I am what I call leadership sad. I'm just leadership sad. I'm a positive person, and I try to always be up for people and smile. But on the inside, I'm very leadership sad. And I'm leadership sad because Not because of all the issues and the problems and the people. It's because of the leaders. The leaders, we're not stepping up. And we're not stepping up because we lack strong emotional core. And so I said when I did this lesson, really I did it a couple years ago on emotionally strong leaders, I said the following 6 things. I give them to you quickly in closing. Emotionally strong leaders, number 1, do not waste time feeling sorry for themselves. You can't moan and lead at the same time. Figure it out, would you please? Does anybody want to follow up a moaning, groaning leader? I don't. You don't. None of us do. Make a choice. Are you going to be part of the problem or are you going to be part of the solution? You're going to moan or you're going to groan. Number 2, emotionally strong leaders do not allow themselves to be controlled by others. Now, they walk slowly through the crowd. They listen. They respect people's opinions. There's a difference between me asking questions, respecting your opinion, listening to you, and letting you control how I lead. You see, you either lead or you lead or be led. Just lead or be led. That's just how simple it is. Number 3, emotionally strong leaders embrace changes and challenges. In fact, to be honest with you, leaders are just a little bit weird here. When there's a problem, they just kind of start living and breathing to a higher level, and it just excites them because they've got a challenge in front of them. They love mountains. They just give me a mountain and let me figure out how to get myself and my team to climb it. Number 4, emotionally strong leaders do not worry about pleasing others. They want to serve others. They want to help others. But a long time ago, as a young leader, I realized that I was called to be a leader, not a clown. So my goal isn't to always make you happy. I learned a long time ago that if I just make you happy, I can't help you. In fact, I learned also that if you need people, if you need their affirmation, you need people to say, oh, you're just wonderful, or oh, we couldn't do without you, all that stuff that's so ridiculous. If you need people, you really can't lead people. You have to be able to rise above the emotions of others because they're really raw right now. And you need to be stronger on the inside. A leader that can't rise emotionally above the people that he or she is trying to lead is just going to take them all on an emotional train wreck. I promise you. I promise you. Number 5. Emotionally strong leaders do not expect immediate results or answers. There's no quick fix. So when people are always asking me, well, make a quick statement. This happened. Make a statement. I'm looking at them and saying, excuse me. A statement isn't going to make a difference. Now, there are ways to make a difference, but emotionally strong leaders realize there's just no quick fix. It's a lot deeper and deserves more than just a statement. And finally, emotionally strong people are not led by their emotions. They're led by their values. They're led by their calling. They're led by their principles. I can tell you what they're led by, but their emotions, no. There are many times as a leader, emotionally, I wanted to do something that I didn't do because I understood that I had a higher calling and I needed to go to a higher level than what the emotional world would allow me to live in and walk in. Well, there you have it. There are the observations and 4 adjustments, and this is halftime. So my goal for you, me, for all of us is let's kind of look at these adjustments. Let's make them. Let's look at the observations and let's learn from them, and let's just get better because of them. And God bless. My name's John, and I'm your friend.
Thanks for being with us today on the Leadership When It Matters the Most program. I hope John encouraged you in your leadership just like he encouraged me. Our goal in this time of crisis is to come alongside you, add value to you so you can multiply value to others. If you go to johnmaxwell.com, you'll find free resources, tools that will help you lead in these very unique times. You'll find our podcast, John Maxwell Leadership Podcast, Minute with Maxwell, a daily word that John will bring to you, as well as our leadership blog. All of those resources on johnmaxwell.com, and they are free and ready for you to encourage you as well as you encourage others. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon when leadership matters the most.